Hello friends, this video on dual nature of radiation and matter part 8 is brought to you by examfear.com. No more fear from exam. Please make sure that you have watched all the videos till part 7 before going ahead with part 8. So what was the final conclusion? So now we arrived at a point where people accepted that particle nature of radiation exists. But at the same time, nobody told that wave nature of light is an incorrect concept, because the phenomenon of interference, diffraction, polarization were still not been explained by the particle nature. So that means wave nature is also correct and particle nature is also correct. So it was concluded that radiation exhibits both particle nature as well as wave nature depending upon the conditions. For example, just now I mentioned, for example, when radiation interacts with matter, that time it behaves like a particle. It behaves as if it is made up of many particles called photons. Similarly, if we consider a scenario where we have taken a radiation of certain wavelength and we made it pass through a small gap of the same order of its wavelength. In that case, we can observe the diffraction effects and the wave nature of and the phenomenon related to the wave nature of radiation. Right? So depending upon the situation, depending upon the experiment where we are using radiation, it depends whether radiation behaves like a wave or it behaves like a particle. So now that we have spoken about dual nature of radiation, so now we are all convinced that radiation has both particle nature as well as wave nature. It is time to discuss about the wave nature of matter. Sounds weird, right? Because matter is something which is made up of particles. We all know that. Matter, what is matter? Nothing but made up of molecules, which in turn is made up of atoms. Atoms in turn is made up of electrons, protons, neutrons. So everybody knows that matter is of particle nature. So why do we want to talk about wave nature of matter? Now, matter and radiation, they are two counterparts of this universe. I mean, every time, whatever you see, whatever physical process you see around yourself, everywhere there are two counterparts, radiation and matter. So if radiation has dual nature, matter is also supposed to have dual nature. However, it sounds little weird, but that's true. So related to this wave nature of matter, there was a hypothesis given by this scientist named de Broglie. De Broglie's hypothesis was it again set a milestone talking about wave nature of matter. It gave birth to many new principles which finally led to what we know as quantum mechanics now. So de Broglie's hypothesis was very crucial and very true. What did he say? He said that a particle of mass m moving with velocity v behave like a wave under suitable conditions. So it never told about any specific particle. It is telling any particle which has a mass and which is moving with some velocity v will behave like a wave under suitable conditions. Now, what is this suitable condition again? So this means that even I can behave as a wave, because if I have a mass, some mass m, if I am moving with some velocity v, I can also behave like a wave, right? That is what it says. But it sounds so strange, right? Have you ever seen any of the particle behaving like a wave? No. Whatever particles we see, they are all particles. So what does this actually mean? He told that the associated wave is known as matter wave, because since it is the wave related to the matter, so it was called matter wave. And the de Broglie wavelength of matter wave was given by this expression: lambda is equal to h upon p or h upon mv, where p is the momentum, that is mass into velocity, and h is Planck's constant. So he even told how much would be the wavelength related to that particular object. Now the question is, if de Broglie's hypothesis is true, in that case every object which we see around ourselves, they all should behave like wave, right? But why don't they? That's because of these three words, under suitable conditions. So what defines these suitable conditions? We will see it now. Let us consider macroscopic objects, that means big objects which we see around us. Say for example, I think of a car. So what you think would be the mass of a car? the mass of a car of any, I'm just taking a rough value. Let us suppose that the mass of the car is 1000 kgs. It will be somewhere around that. And let us suppose that the car moves with a velocity, let us say 40 kilometers per hour. So I am just taking some average values which are normally true for a car. So mass of a car would be high, velocity with which the car moves is also high. So now, according to de Broglie's hypothesis, there should be a wavelength associated with this car. So what is that wavelength? That wavelength is lambda is equal to h by p. That is lambda is equal to h by mv, which is equal to, what is h? H is 6.67 into 10 to the power minus 34 divided by mv, where m is 1000 and v is 40 kilometers per hour, that is 40,000 meter per second. So this comes out to be 60.03 into 10 to the power minus 32 meters. So what do you see? The wavelength associated with this car is of the order of 10 to the power minus 32 meters. So it is extremely small. Now, you remember I mentioned in the lesson on wave optics that if the wavelength of a wave is very small, normally we will not see it as a wave. For example, let us suppose this is one wave. You can see this as a wave. Why? Because this is the wavelength. Now, if there is a wave which has a very small wavelength, somewhat like this. So here, if you see it from far, it almost looks like a straight line. Similarly, if you have whose wavelength is even smaller than this, you will not even know that it is a wave. So this particular object or this car will behave as a wave only if it is judged under a dimension which is as smaller as this dimension. But this dimension is so very small that under normal situations, we don't get anything of this dimension. So we never see its wave behavior. So that means every object has the capability to behave as a wave, but if the mass and velocity of the object is bigger, in that case the wavelength associated with it is extremely small. Now let us look at some small object. For example, let us consider an electron. Now what happens in case of an electron? Mass of an electron is small. It is 9.1 into 10 to the power minus 31 kgs. But electron also is mostly visualized as a particle. However, there are certain scenarios where we can actually see an electron behaving like a wave. So let us see under what scenarios we can see the wave behavior of an electron. Now for electron also we will apply the same de Broglie's hypothesis, which says lambda is equal to h by p, that is lambda is equal to h by mv. Now how do we know the velocity of the electron? Okay, so in order to know the velocity of the electron, let us assume that an electron is accelerated from rest. Initially, the electron was at rest and then it was accelerated through a potential V. So what will happen? The kinetic energy associated with the electron would be charge into the potential, which is E into V. But at the same time, we also know that kinetic energy is equal to half mv square. Therefore, we can say that EV is equal to half mv square. Small v represents velocity and capital V represents potential. Right? Now, so in this case, we see kinetic energy is equal to half mv square. This is not required here. So this can be written as half mv square divided by m. What is mass into velocity? It is nothing but momentum. So this is half p square by m. So from this we can write p square is equal to 2m into kinetic energy. Therefore, P is equal to root over 2m into k, where k denotes kinetic energy. Therefore, de Broglie's wavelength lambda will be equal to h divided by p. So we can write it as h divided by root over 2mk. Now also in the previous slide, we had written that kinetic energy is equal to E into V. So therefore we can write this divided by root over 2m E into V. So now we know that mass of electron is equal to 9.1 into 10 to the power minus 31 kgs. Charge on an electron is 1.6 into 10 to the power minus 19 coulombs. Right? Therefore, lambda comes out to be 6.67 into 10 to the power minus 34 divided by root over 2 into 9.1 into 10 to the power minus 31 into 1.6 into 10 to the power minus 19 into capital V. So on calculating this, we get 1.227 divided by root over capital V nanometer. So this comes out to be the wavelength of an electron when it is accelerated by a potential of capital V. So now if we assume that, let us assume that it is accelerated by a potential of say 100 volts. In that case, the wavelength associated with the electron comes out to be 1.227 divided by root over 100. So it comes out to be 0.112 nanometers. At least this wavelength is quite bigger than the wavelength we received in case of a car. This is in terms of nanometer. And this is found to be of the same order as that of spacing between atomic crystals. When you study the internal structure of atomic crystals, you see that the spacing between the atomic crystals is 0.1 is of this order. So therefore, electrons' wave nature can be seen in crystal diffraction experiment. But in case of car, the wavelength was so small that we could not think of anything where the dimension will be that small, right? So therefore, wave nature of electron can be observed in crystal diffraction experiments. So therefore, this shows that every object, that is every matter, can behave as a wave, but the wavelength associated with it, if it is very small, it is not viewed generally. I mean, we can observe its wave nature only when it is made to behave in an experiment where the dimension is of the order of its wavelength. Right? Thank you. Please visit examfear.com to watch free educational videos, try free online tests, get the best quality study materials, study from the best tutors and mentors, and much more. Thank you once again.